Hi, everyone. Welcome to the International Cannabis Conversation, brought to you by trichomes.com and hosted by the Global Cannabis Network Collective. I'm Jill Reddish, and together with Chris Day, we're the co-founders of the Global Cannabis Network Collective.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us this week on International Cannabis Conversations. I'm excited to introduce you to our guest today, Abhishek Mohan, the co-founder of Hempstreet, India's first research to retail venture in the Ayurvedic cannabis sector. They work with a lot of top-notch scientists to conduct R&D for medicinal cannabis, provided through a network of over 60,000 medical practitioners in 220 clinics around India. Abhishek, I want to first thank you very much for joining us and observe that just the size of that network and the context of this conversation, I think, is astounding. I think people forget that India is almost 1.4 billion people. And so I'm really happy that you gave us some time today. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Jill and Chris. Very, very happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
Of course. So let's talk first a little bit about Hempstreet, because, like I said, India is such a large country, and in a lot of conversations around cannabis, which this show is all about, I think sometimes the market doesn't get the attention it deserves. When we talked last, we had a brief discussion about the definition of emerging markets, and you had pontificated to me that it was odd calling India an emerging market because there's over a 3,000-year history there. So, I mean, tell me a little bit about Hempstreet and what you're working on.
So, yeah, as mentioned, Hempstreet is India's first research to retail, fully integrated venture in medical cannabis. In short, why Hempstreet came about was that there is a massive pain relief crisis in India, massive. And the opioid crisis from the US is spilling over into India. And India is known to basically be affected by any mass evil that seems to happen around the world. It just explodes when it comes to India. So we've decided that, as we've seen and read abroad, that cannabis is one way to one most sustainable alternative to provide pain relief to people. And so we decided to build Hempstreet within the confines of Ayurveda, which is the only legal avenue to prescribe cannabis, has been for over a couple of thousand years, and it's still continued right through the bans and everything. It's always been allowed to operate. So we decided to take Ayurveda, modernize the way cannabis is dispensed, make sure we completely fit in all the things that have gone wrong with opioids, whether it's the way it's been dispensed, what's been dispensed for, how the raw materials been, how it's been tracked, and then build a world-class organization that will deliver to the Indian masses to begin with responsible pain relief.
And maybe for the audience, it would help, because I know not everybody's familiar. I mean, they may have heard the word Ayurveda, but they may not know contextually what you're talking about when you say it.
Sure. So Ayurveda is the traditional form of medicine in India that has remained through the ages and still continues today. It's been obviously modernized and modern manufacturing plants and CGMP. It exports largely, natural products, largely herb-based products, and products that are made of natural ingredients. And they've been used for a variety of ailments, and for a long time they're being exported to Japan and Germany and a lot of Western countries. I would say the West Coast of the US is a big fan. Now, while people haven't heard of Ayurveda, if you're consuming turmeric or ashwagandha or any of these kind of fashionable supplements, you're unknowingly consuming Ayurveda. That's where it was invented. That's where it came from. Or if you're doing yoga like all the fashionable people around the world, that is the kind of Ayurvedic soft diplomacy that you see, something that's long-term wellness and sustainable.
Well, I can attest to that, as I had turmeric and ginger tea today. So thank you, India, for that.
Yeah, I think you're probably the only person in the last 12 months that has come close to calling me fashionable. But I do love yoga. and there is ashwagandha also on my desk as we're interviewing. So
There
I
you go. There you go.
find it interesting. Talk to me a little bit about sort of the combinations and the research that you're doing, because a lot of our audience, they hear about cannabis and they know CBD and they know there's other cannabinoids there, but this notion of sort of mixing various herbs as a medicinal treatment may be a little more foreign.
Absolutely. So I think, like I said, the cannabis industry that is, the ones that make the headlines has been around for about 7, 8 years, maybe 10, is defined cannabis in a way that it is some kind of super high, tech product that needs to go and deliver, these crazy benefits. I think um, so. As a result, the definition from the enthusiast community or the people that are following the industry comes from Canada and but the fact that there's a completely different definition and usage of cannabis because it's not the only active ingredient in Ayurveda. So as a result, this medicine comes with cannabis in it. It's not this cannabis is a medicine. So I think as a result, it's just that India's had its own system and it's been working for quite some time. Now it's just a matter of being able to provide more evidence based, which is again lacking in most of the cannabis industry. Other than Sativex or one or two, there's not been a massive amount of evidence based. It's still been stuff like dronabinol in Germany, which is for sleep, anxiety, and appetite, which is the oldest use of cannabis. Why would you want to synthesize and make it a big deal when it's actually just the most basic use? So I think if you look at it from a solutions perspective, now, are you trying to solve pain relief? Or are you trying to sell cannabis? We're not trying to sell cannabis. We think cannabis is a great candidate for what we're trying to do with it. And I think that's kind of where everything, like when people come to me and say, well, India is CBD legal. I said, no, it's not. Also, he said, oh, so India is pre-legalized. I said, no, India is fully legal if you want to solve a problem. If you want to sell CBD or a vape pen, yeah, so it's illegal. But if you want to provide pain relief to the masses in a legal way, you have to do the work, and it is federally legal in every state. So I don't know, did I digress? But yeah,
No,
I kind of forgot the question.
no, you did great. But
I tend to do this, yeah.
yeah, me too. So that's why it's conversational, because if I
What was
ever
the name again?
script the whole thing, it never works. One of the comments that you just made, though, hits home for me, and that is, we're not trying to sell cannabis, right? We're trying to sell a solution to people's pain. And I think that is, it's not a foreign concept, but when you talk about sort of the modern cannabis industry and the investment opportunities that are always talked about, right? And the monetary aspect, you're taking a different approach. You're saying it's going to be patients first, and we're going to figure out what the need is, and we're going to solve to the need. Is that the impetus behind the company?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we will always choose mass. We're not going to have 250 products, full of different things. So we're going after mass ailments. I mean, about 11 to 12% of India is arthritis. Can you even imagine that number? That's half the population of the US has arthritis. 71% of women suffer from dysmenorrhea and menstrual cramps, 48% severe. So that's why our first product was aimed at menstrual cramps. The feedback has been fantastic. We have now we're launching it with 400 of our clinics, which 400 doctors and main doctors and clinics. Even though we could have launched it with no research because it's a classical product, we did a 2,000 clinic trial, 2,000 clinic sampling. We got hundreds of doctors have responded in writing, some and verbally. It's worked really well with dysmenorrhea, which is a massive problem in India. Women, first of all, have been second-class citizens for the longest time. And the second is something that happens to a woman every month, especially at 70% of them in India. And they have to live with that pain, especially in rural India, and not talk about it and have to continue working in a poor country like India. Come on. I mean, like, something had to be done. That's why we will always go after mass ailments. We will be, maybe in 10 years, we'll only have 15 products, but even those products will take care of hundreds of millions of people. I would say I would look at ourselves as a vaccine manufacturer, not really, but that way. Go for mass problems and solve them. Don't try to sell become I wouldn't say the name, I might probably get sued. So don't become like a FMCG player and have like 25,000 products and make it a distribution game and an advertising game. No, solve mass ailments. And that's an opportunity we have, and we're taking it.
Well, I don't know, obviously, what it feels like, but I've got 2 daughters and a wife who I think all 3 of them would be thankful for that type of approach. So,
Absolutely. That's music to my ears. And of course, as you pointed out, all of the numbers of people who are struggling with this that has just largely been ignored by the scientific community for so long.
I'll
And
give you a
this
number,
is your first.
330 million.
That's
330
insane.
million women in India are of menstrual age. So it's crazy. I mean, if you're ignoring that huge segment and half of our population, it's just something had to be done. And I'm glad we did it.
So it sounds to me as though the doctors and the people who are the practitioners who are prescribing medication, trying to solve people's problems, they're already on board with using cannabis,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
so opposite to where we're sitting here in the United States. So many businesses are facing the problem of trying to win over the practitioners first and take away that stigma that so many other countries deal with.
We did that on day one. So when we decided to start Hempstreet, we met with over 150 doctors all over the country, men, women, general practitioners, gynecologists, Ayurvedic doctors. They told me that they had been prescribing in some raw form cannabis, very hard, unbroken supply chain. So they said, if you could solve, and they gave us the ailments that were, I mean, I'm not I guess I'm smart, but I'm not a super genius. So they gave me the ailments that were really plaguing their patients, where cannabis could solve. And we took that advice and formulated. And even though we had the classical formulation, we still put it through a GMP facility. We're now tracking it end to end. We did everything that we're not required to do because we know this is what the industry needs to avoid the mistakes of everything else that we're against. So yeah, we got these ailments. We got about 15 of them from the doctors. Based on that, we formulated the products that we were going after. And then we tested, obviously we sampled them, and now we're on the shelves.
I mean, that's incredibly powerful for the industry as a whole, because now we have hundreds of millions of people who are already on board with using these products, who understand the value, or at least the businesses, the medical professionals understand the value of these research studies. At this point, you're arguing for the research to the rest of the world that's over here still trying to get rid of the stigma.
Absolutely. And again, in Ayurveda, it is only one active ingredient. It's the Ayurveda. We are a subset of the Ayurveda industry. We're not a founder of the cannabis industry. I think that's what people need to understand. At this point in India, cannabis is a subset of Ayurveda. That's as long as you acknowledge that, it's fine. I mean, that's
one of the things that I'm thinking about is if you've done these studies and you've deployed it to the market and you have this information, like what has been, well, I guess first I should ask, have you taken sort of these results and research and tried to expand the communication of it outside of India? And if you have, what's been the reception?
So first of all, I mean, we just completed it. We've just gone onto our doctor's shelves like 3 weeks ago. So the results are self-collected. They've been sent in as forms by the doctors, but we're embarking upon 3 different studies. One for basically, we've recently won a top biotech award for the development of a transdermal patch. It'll be the world's first of its kind. So we are going into release studies, and we're doing research on that. On the classical products, yes, we're collating the data. We will. I need to find out what is publisher worthy, because nobody's done it in this industry. So we're just working that out with educational institutions to see how much of the data we can use and how much has to be collected under them. So definitely, we will do all the things that are required to bring Ayurveda to an even keel with everybody else. Publishing, research, and basically manufacturing and export, whatever standard. So all the things that Ayurveda is being called witchcraft for, we will alleviate those. We will do everything that is being done, so we're seen as equals. It's, I would say, like the Jamaican bobsled team. Like we just have to win.
Yeah.
You have to win. You have to win on an even keel and on a even platform, so nobody will ignore you anymore. So I think from a research perspective, Ayurveda itself is not getting the attention it deserves, which is why I decided to forget the global market for now. There's so much stuff to be done in India. So once we need to be seen as equals, otherwise, whatever research we do will just be, it's a survey done by a bunch of witch doctors.
Yeah, I in our previous conversation a couple of weeks ago, when it became clear we had to have you on the podcast, I had mentioned that to you that my wife owns a salon here in the States, and she very much is interested in shifting the focus into sort of more of a holistic wellness approach. And it's certainly grown in popularity. People are starting to get it in what is loosely defined as Western markets, right? And I'm looking forward to being able to take that kind of research that is also supported by the academic institutions and others to be able to really push it out. It's something that I have struggled with ever since I entered the cannabis market and working here, because depending on which country you're in or which part of the world you're in, certain people will listen to certain research studies, but they weren't signed off by this governmental body, or it wasn't grown in this particular place where we know who did it. And so, I mean, it's certainly time to be able to introduce these studies more definitively.
Absolutely. So we've engaged in research, like, whatever we've done, because we realized we're building the industry. We're the first real player. So we had to make sure we had best in class on every level, right? So supply chain is blockchain, raw materials straight from the government, dispensation is only by doctors. I mean, as much as anybody wants to be a pill miller, they can't. And we don't, we have a layer of I would say, blockchain to take care of that as well. We have a QR code with the end user. And our research is done in partnership with CSI, or the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. It's the apex body of research. It was run until recently. This lab that we work with run until recently by a Nobel nominee, and they're the top brains in India. They've got, I think, 15,000 patents. I think, I don't know if I'm wrong, about 1,000 international ones. So we are working with the top notch, and they are and their institution called IIIM, Indian Institute of Integrative Medicine, which is basically a lot of plant-based medicine. So we've got top of class. I mean, their HPLC machine and their facility is as good as Israel or anywhere else. So we've acknowledged that we don't need to do this, but we know that if we have to win in the global market, if we have to future-proof this industry for 10 years from now, we need to work with the best in class. So yeah, I'm definitely not the head researcher. Mm-hmm. We work with real scientists. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that also. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're doing it, because while I think you will be very successful in India, the rest of the world needs this kind of stuff too, right? We need the research and the information, and there's a lot of markets. I don't think they're against it. They're just sort of agnostic, right? They just don't move. And so being able to come forward with it is great. And, we're looking forward to helping you do that with the discussion.
And in India, so I think one of the things in India is it's the first time we have a fully indigenous industry, right? The pain relief crisis is indigenous. The problem, the form of medicine is indigenous and tested for quite some time. The plant is indigenous to India. And the impact of the cannabis is, I mean, for us at Hempstreet, it's not, pain relief is one side, the patients, but then India has about 83% of our farmers have less than 3 hectares of land. They need a cash crop, right? So, and hemp is great. I mean, I guess it's a cash crop, but cannabis is, for medicinal reasons, is better because it's smaller volume but higher, higher price, and there's a chance for us to actually impact all sides of the table within industry, which is why we haven't. We feel that India is still very much front and center for us, because the impact of the industry could be insane on all sides of the table, on the business side, the farmer side, the tax collection side, and the patient side.
Yeah, that's a really exciting vision when you think about the small farmers and the opportunities there. There's so much land in India.
Let's not forget why we're in this business. Yeah. Why are we? Let's not forget why we're in this, right?
So we had talked. I mean, we did talk about the patients and the solutions-oriented approach. But what you just mentioned about being able to help small farmers and others with economic opportunity. Let's talk about that a little bit, because it is something that sounds a little bit familiar. I was in the sense that I was talking to some folks in sub-Saharan Africa a couple of weeks ago about a similar issue, right? Which is creating economic opportunity for people that may struggle in a lot of ways. What are some of the legal barriers or legal ramifications? I know we said it's legal, but what's the structure in India for that to occur?
So right now, farming of cannabis is illegal. So you have to buy it from the government, from the excise department, but there's no lack of it. They're able to supply it to us. But the idea is we want to work with the government, with the excise department, to work with the farmers that are downstream, give them better ways of growing, and make sure all their produce is bought. So right now, we're not trying to change. See, the thing is, if you understand and respect to the environment that you're in, and see how you can work within the, I would say, framework of that environment, it's a lot easier than telling the government, okay, you guys are doing it all wrong. Let's revamp this. That takes 10 years. Patients are not going to wait. Farmers are not going to wait. So the Indian government is very engaging. If you don't go, I mean, if you come up with something constructive. And right now, how it's structured is that the farmers or the wild collectors collect it, and then they give it to the excise department, who gives it to license holders like myself. And so what we want to do is work with the government to make sure the yields, qualities, and output is better downstream. That's it. They still continue supplying it to us, but we help them with the, eventually maybe sort of a contract farming element where we don't intend to become farmers on massive scale. That's where the industry dies when you industrialize every element of it, especially in a country like India. So yeah, we don't intend to it's. I think it's ripe for value addition, I would say, on the farmer level. So yeah.
So, Avi, I have not had a chance to visit India personally. It's on my list. I know Jill has.
I keep telling him to go.
So,
you should. Yeah. Well, in a few months, I would say after COVID stuff blows over.
Believe me, travel is and seeing places and cultures and appreciating sort of the different dynamics that exist around the world is part of what drove us to create the Global Cannabis Network Collective. And it's part of what's driving our partnership with Trichomes to do this podcast and videocast. But for those who haven't or have only sort of looked at India through a tourist lens, I guess, can you tell us a little bit more about just sort of the dynamic that exists both economically and within the country, and sort of what the long-term macro level vision is for the industry and how that is born out of sort of Indian history?
So, I mean, India's got a very old history of being an organized society for, until, I guess, colonization. So we kind of just, our modern history is just, it's since 1947, right? 73 years old. Yeah, 73. And so I think India is extremely diverse. But extremely diverse in terms of the content we consume. It's extremely diverse in terms of what we like, what we eat, what we speak. We have 27 national languages or more. We have dialects, thousands of dialects. Like, I could go to a state and not understand a thing written on a notice board. And that's India's. It's like Europe. It's more diverse than Europe, I would say. And but one thing about Ayurveda is it stretches across the country. It's the unifying factor, I guess. I guess cricket and Ayurveda are the unifying factors of India. And I guess Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the Kaun Banega, the Indian version.
Right.
So
yeah.
So I think that's a. So as a result, I think with the whole COVID stuff happening, with healthy people realizing that they're not healthy because of what they're taking, with women realizing that taking certain pharmaceutical products for menstrual cramps for 28 or 30 years every month could damage your kidneys, or if it's got side effects and it's a very long term. So people are realizing that wellness is an ongoing thing. So Ayurveda has benefited massively. It was always uncool. In my generation, it was kind of uncool to go to an Ayurveda doctor because it was way cooler to go buy something OTC, right? Go to the and all the marketing money that went Ayurveda didn't have 1/100th of that marketing money. But now with the internet, people are going back to it. So people are going back to natural, not just Ayurveda. They're going back to natural, and cannabis being, like I said, a subset of Ayurveda, the trust level is not at the end user. Trust level is the doctor. If the doctor believes in your product, if the doctor believes that cannabis is beneficial, then the patient listens to him. In Ayurvedic, doctor is not some guy in a white coat that comes and speaks to you very curtly and then tells you what to do, like you see in a lot of parts of the world. He's like an old uncle. He's like somebody, his father's probably treated your father, and he's got like a GP, and there's a lot of trust, which is why they don't. Ayurvedic doctors are not the kind of guys that you tell them, listen, you're carrying this product, please carry this product as well. They will probably tell you to take a hike, because it's their reputation. It's a very personal relationship they have with their patients. So that was the biggest hurdle for us, and that is fine now. So I think for the industry, India will see a tremendous amount of growth. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if by 2025 we have more people using cannabis-based medication. Forget recreational; I have no idea about cannabis-based medication than the population of Canada times two. So I don't think that's a far away thought. So I'm very positive about the industry if players respect two things. One is respect the responsible dispensation, you respect the doctor network, and you respect Ayurveda. That means you have to go to a physician, go through the clinical. You can't let people self-medicate on the first round. They need to go to a doctor, understand the various facets of their body. See, if you're using Ayurveda, don't use it as a loophole to sell cannabis. Use it in its entirety. And I think those will be the defining moments. I know we have it, and we will do it, and we've done it now, even though we could have grown, unhindered without doing all these restricting ourselves. But we're doing it with the long term view, and I'm very positive about where the industry is going.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. So
Go ahead, Jill.
So what you just said there made me think very much about that's the kind of business intelligence that investors always really need to know. And very much understanding, where does the local market come from? Where are they thinking about things? What's their point of view? And some of those things that you touched on are almost completely opposite to a lot of Western markets. Not completely, but many. So at this point, I'd like to hear your thoughts about what is the investment landscape if a foreign investor is interested in partnering with a cannabis business in India. What are your thoughts? What should they know?
Unrestricted, but make sure they have all the licenses in place. I think 8 out of 10 so-called cannabis companies don't own any licenses, or they're just marketing companies manufacturing somewhere else where they have no equity interest, and getting allocations from someone else and marketing it, trying to sell beauty products or whatever. Make sure do your due diligence. Make sure the paperwork is in place, that it's not a smoke and mirrors kind of setup, which is why I invite you to look at my data room. I've got everything. But we built each piece from the ground up, and a couple of other players have been trying to do the same. But there's a lot of shady operators, and they're getting weeded out. Amazon and Flipkart have already banned the sale of hemp derivatives because people are selling CBD illegally. Respect and if you're an investor, India is fantastic because it's federally legal. It's got a massive application ailment. But if you're a cannabis operator in another country, trying to bring your products to India, it's going to be very hard for you. It's mostly illegal. So if you embrace the local form of medicine, this is again why I like you guys, because you're collecting people from all over the world. Everybody deserves credit for what they're doing right in their market, right?
Absolutely.
I think from a research perspective, Israel is rocking it. These guys are, I've got really good friends in the industry, and you got to give credit where it's due. But from a holistic perspective, India's been doing it for a long time. So just give people medals based on what is relevant to their markets, right? It's not the Olympics where you have a single stopwatch and whoever runs fastest. No, cannabis is not that. We're in this to solve people's problems. So don't treat it like the Olympics.
Yeah.
So
that is actually very much the spirit of what we're trying to do at the GCNC, which is bring the world together, help people highlight what they're doing that is truly unique and interesting and different, and then fuse it such that it benefits, markets around the world by enhancing knowledge share and helping to create the right deals with the right people in the right countries.
Like the Beatles, right? You can't, if all the Beatles played bass guitar, we wouldn't have Ringo and John and
it
Paul.
Would be
and Paul played bass.
a very difficult song to listen to if that was all. It was.
Right. Exactly. So I think that's what. Yeah.
Hey, one other thing, because these always go so fast for me, and we start to get close to time. But you work in a number of other things as well. You have an incubator to help bring new ideas and new companies to market. So tell us a little bit about, other than Hempstreet and all this, which I could literally talk to you about for hours, but what else is sort of in the pipeline?
So we basically, I'm also co-founder of India's first startup studio. And we're a little bit more intimate than an incubator in that we don't take cash, we take equity, and we basically work very closely with founders to make sure these are winning things, right? And we realized about 4 or 5 years ago that product, a technology product, and it was the breaking point for a lot of startups in the early stage. I mean, we had two guys that were usually business guys like myself, and they built a business, and they build a product. It doesn't scale. They burn their, they don't know who the CTO is. So we step in as like a chief product officer and a chief technology officer, a professional CTO and CPO. We take equity and we help them get to the next level. So we've got 37 companies that have gone through us or are in our portfolio now. And many of them have raised money from marquee investors. They're in 19 different sectors and with a cumulative valuation of close to 700 million US. So we've had very stories. We've had people that have come in with a broken product. We fixed it, helped them raise money, and guided them even today. We've had guys that have come with an idea and we've turned it into a company that's raised money and they've done well and built world-beating products. We've had guys that have built AI-based contract management. We've had an Ayurvedic startup that became very big. We have communication between teachers and students, like an ed tech platform. We have a bunch of others. So building companies is something we do every day of our lives. And then the Hempstreet opportunity came about while I was looking at our various startups, and I decided to spend my time building this.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's where we are.
You've taken being a serial entrepreneur to a whole new level. So, but it's amazing. I love it. I've always appreciated working with people who have these great visions and then are willing to find the right partners and the right skill sets to work together to build it. I was having a discussion just the other day with someone, reminding them that you don't have to do it all yourself, but you do have to find the right group of people to help take an idea out.
Best in class.
So, yeah, that's great.
Best in class, yeah.
Well, I want to sort of wrap this up with just asking one final question, which is, as you're looking forward with Hempstreet and you're looking at sort of what the growth plan is, both in India and then ultimately broader, say, I never ask more than a couple of years in cannabis because everything changes. But, 3 or 4 years from now, where do you see the company, and what do you hope that it's accomplished?
So I would say in 4 years from now, we should have tackled at least 4 or 5 of the ailments that we're looking at in terms of pain relief, served at least 250 million people at some point. And but at the same time, also, with the research that we're doing with the transdermal patch, be able to probably bring that to Europe and North America to begin with. Massively invest in research, establish India not as a BPO like we've always been, not as an outsourced IT hub, but as a cutting edge market form, as a cutting edge research player, and as a company that people will look at and say, you know what, these guys did it right. They didn't cut corners. They were once able to build an institution that's bigger than them, that served everybody on all sides of the table, didn't screw over the farmers, didn't do anything illegal, but still scaled. I think that would be an amazing achievement, to show that we built an institution out of a third world country that is a world beater.
Yeah, I never liked the first, second, and third world descriptions of countries, because I feel like technology and communication around the globe now makes that irrelevant. It's joining minds and building a world that does great things. So, Abhishek, I want to thank you so much for joining us on International Cannabis Conversation today. It's been a true pleasure, and I have a feeling in a couple more months we'll have you back, because we want to hear more about the progress of the research. We want to hear how the company's doing and where you're headed. So thanks so much.
Well, thanks, Jill and Chris, and it was an absolute pleasure. And I hope to see you guys in India once all this stuff blows over. You can come see it for yourself, see our manufacturing, meet our doctors, listen to our patients. I think I'd love to do that. So invitations are super open.
Let's plan on the next one being in person. I can't wait to get back on airplanes. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
I sometimes just drive around the airport and come back.
Abby, I cannot wait to visit and to see your vision come to life. That was incredible. Love this conversation. Thank you so much. And to everybody listening, stay tuned for more cannabis leaders on International Cannabis Conversations.